The Supreme Court of Appeal has overturned the finding of misconduct against former Rhodes University student Yolanda Dyantyi. Dyantyi was expelled for life from the university for her role in a protest against gender-based violence on campus in 2017. It was in 2016, actually. After a 4-year fight, Dyantyi has emerged victorious. She joins me now live for a conversation and reflections on the court case. Yolanda, good evening. Thank you for your time. The judgment itself from the Supreme Court of Appeal came about 7 or 8 days ago, and I'm only imagining, has it sunk in for you, given the, how high the stakes were for you in all of this? Not only is it about your future and your education career, which came to an abrupt end, but also it had to do with, the issue of the many applications that you had undertaken and the costs orders that kept coming left, right, and center almost at every turn against you.
Good evening, Tulasizo. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Yes, it has been. It was exactly a week ago when I received the news that I had emerged victorious in this battle against Rhodes University. Indeed, it has been very long. I'm still in shock. I'm still processing the feelings. Also, because it's still a long journey. I'd like to believe that it's the beginning of another journey. Because it isn't the end. Of course, the judgment that was handed down by the Supreme Court does state that, it is to the university's discretion to choose or to make the decision on what the way forward is. So we're waiting for those court days. It's about 15 court days that they have to pronounce a decision after the judgment that has been handed down. But yes, I'm happy, I'm processing everything. It's a shock just talking about it. Because also, yes, I've emerged victorious. I've won in this instance, but it's looking at also this, the circumstances or the consequences of these past 4, 5, 6 years that I've had on my life. And it's not like anything has necessarily changed overnight per se, apart from the fact that my name has been cleared, and really this journey has been about that, clearing my name. It has been fighting for the fact that I should have been given a fair process to begin with, and so yes, we are here today.
And Yolanda, to the extent that there's anyone who might have forgotten what the genesis of the processes that led to you being expelled and excluded for life from Rhodes University, to the extent that there's someone who doesn't remember, just remind us, what was the point of the protests, the RU reference list protests that were taking place in 2016?
Yes. So the hashtag RE reference list anti-rape culture protests were protests that erupted at the university's campus in Grahamstown, Makanda, and really about 800 to 1,000 students, a handful of majority women students and those who are also part of the LGBTQI community. Really, we stood in solidarity with each other, and we were really just saying enough is enough. We're breaking the silence, and we were calling for just some sort of response from the university that would really address this crisis of rape culture, of students not feeling safe on the campus and within the surrounding community, which is Grahamstown, right? And we know that because we live in South Africa. South Africa is a highly violent society. Gender-based violence literally is a reality for many women, many Black women in this country. And so it's no different at these university campuses. And so in that year, and I myself as a rape survivor, I participated for those reasons. I felt like the university wasn't responding adequately. It hadn't responded over the years, because it wasn't the first time that we had that the student body at Rhodes University had participated or had protested under any banner really. And so at that point we were protesting, and the protests were triggered by a list of 11 names that had circulated anonymously on social media. And this list really was a list of 11 male students' names. It didn't say anybody was a rapist or a perpetrator of any sort of violence. But because those names were popular and those names had these allegations, right? And we knew who these people were and what and the stories and the allegations. And we knew the survivors as well. We live in a small community, and we understand the pervasiveness of violence. And so that list really was what triggered the response from that evening, which was the 17th of April, when the protests broke out, which lasted for almost 2 weeks.
Yolanda,
so
because
it comes.
Yeah, because of time, let me try and move us along. Do you know, you were excluded, of course, just on the verge of writing your final exams in November 2017, and I can only imagine the consequences thereof. But do you know if after you left, the university then had a look at the allegations of a pervasive rape culture and abuse culture on campus, had a look specifically at some of those names that were being mentioned, and perhaps even tried to intervene to say, you know, we may have disagreed with how these students conducted the protest, but we get what issues they were raising, and therefore there's something for us to, at the very least, look into, if not fix?
Yeah, look, I can't say anything about the list itself, and if the university did any investigations with regards to the allegations. I don't think so, because also that list of 11 names was a list of former and current university students. And number two, it wasn't just 11 students or 11 names that we were protesting about, right? We weren't saying there's just 11 perpetrators. So in terms of what the university did, I can say that in terms of my disciplinary hearing, certain students that did appear on the list were brought into the disciplinary hearing to act as alleged witnesses to the allegations that were leveled against myself and the other two women who were also charged and targeted by the university. But to say that, to comment on whether the university has acted adequately, maybe over the years post the RE references protest in 2016, I personally don't think so. Even as a student who, even though I'm a former student, throughout my exclusion over these years, there has been headlines, or just in 2018 post my exclusion, and with the late Kenzani Maseko took her life, and she was in the middle of a whole case herself, having reported and trying to get and seek justice from the university. There's been so many stories, students speaking out about their general experience of whether they report the incidences and some of the inadequacies that comes from the university in terms of the support that they receive or don't receive. So it's a list of issues, and it's not just the Rhodes University crisis. It's an institutional crisis. It's a countrywide crisis, right? Of just how systems really don't center survivors. Systems would rather do everything to protect their brand and to even collude and protect the men who have these allegations, instead of really taking seriously the allegations that have been brought forward. And so I feel the university has failed. It failed in the weeks that we were protesting. It not once sat down and spoke to us and really tried meeting us and really listening to our demands and yes, there were task teams that were set up, but also here's the university spending money, millions of monies, targeting a black woman for participating in a rape culture protest, for demanding for action, swift action from the university, and they decided no, that I'm a criminal, they will villainize me, and the rest is obviously history. So it's been a painful journey, really. I don't want to comment on the things that I do not know of whether Rhodes has done this or that, but I can say that they have clearly, their priorities have also been misguided. Yeah,
and let me tell you why I asked that question. It was about centering those issues so that the issues are not lost, that there was a reason why these protests were happening on campuses such as Rhodes University, and in a way putting in the dock once again and giving a moment of reflection for not just Rhodes University but all these institutions to again relook these issues to the extent that there's not been any meaningful interventions to try and address the concerns about rape culture and harassment and violence on campus that you were raising. We are out of time, Yolanda, and I was going to talk about how there was that shocking element of how the proctor who presided over your hearing basically postponed it to a day where your legal counsel were simply not going to be available, and the result is that your own version was never presented at the hearing, and that's the finding of the Supreme Court of Appeal. But I'm not going to talk about that, and because I'm out of time, let me ask you, looking back on all of this and everything that it has cost you, was it worth it?
Yeah, it was definitely worth it. I mean, this was really about clearing my name. It was also just standing up for myself. I have rights. You know, the Constitution guarantees my right to a just and procedurally fair process. I never not once said I would not want to participate. I prepared for weeks and days with my lawyers, you know. It is on record that I participated in the disciplinary hearing. But when it came to me having to testify in the days leading to me taking the stand, you know, things were put on the record, and, you know, but the point is, yes, it has been worth it. It was worth it from the day I participated in the protests. The allegations would have been tested. I would have laid my evidence in the disciplinary hearing had I been given the opportunity. And Rhodes still has that opportunity to go back to the disciplinary hearing. The Supreme Court has said that. So yes, it was worth it. And I hope, you know, other Black women are also inspired to just continue fighting whatever, you know, battles that they're in, where there are attempts from men and the system in silencing us. Really, this is just about pushing back, especially if you know, the truth, and really just allowing the truth and justice to prevail.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. We'll be hearing from you hopefully again quite soon. Rhodes University, of course, issued out a statement that basically noted the outcome in Yolanda Dyantyi's challenge at the Supreme Court of Appeal, and basically says it was never their intention for this process to be so drawn out. But we don't have clarity as yet, because, you know, the outcome of the SCA is that the matter is remitted back to Rhodes University should they want to charge her again in terms of the disciplinary processes. But importantly, they would have to do so with a different proctor, a different person presiding over whatever hearing they decide that they will hold. So we'll be hearing from Rhodes University and hopefully from Yolanda again in the coming weeks.